All right, everybody, welcome back to round two of the Champ of Champs, coming to you from the Columbus, Ohio Convention Center, care of Heroes and Games and Doug Sims. As always, check out the OverPower Adventures podcast that Doug Sims does. It's a hangout style podcast where they discuss all the current happenings in Overpower and interact with the chat the entire time. So if you have any questions, Phil Miller and Doug Sims will chat with you about it. But we've got a special treat here. So first, Phil the King Keffer, Player of the Year this year, is my co-commentator for at least some of these early matches. We are doing this after the event, about a week after. But Phil, it's great to have you. We saw a great round one.
Yeah, round one was exciting. I'm curious to see how far Jonathan Lewis can run with his strength deck. And here in round two, I think we actually have Laurence that is in this match, right, Joe?
Yes, Laurence is on the stage with us here, and we're about to watch one of his matches. So one of the fun things about doing the commentary after is watching it with the people who were in the match and getting a little bit of insight on their decision making. So thanks for being with us, Laurence.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Phil. Glad to be here.
All right, so Laurence, you and David McMillan you were the 9th and 10th seed out of 10 available spots to make it into the main day. And you had a big match at the end of the day the night before. So we thought that it was a win and only one person was going to go in. But it turned out that Doug had actually done the math wrong and there were 2 available slots. So, Laurence, David beat you the night before, correct?
Yes, this match is sort of like a rematch. Dave and I were playing a play-in match. We were the only 2 players playing at the very end of the night for that last spot. Dave beat me. I went to bed a little resigned, thinking I will do my best in the tournament for everyone the next day. And then I woke up to a message saying I was in after all and to get to the venue a half hour early.
That's great. That's awesome. I'm glad you got to play the main event. So let's head over to the main table. All right. So you guys are doing the cut. So you're playing the same deck you did before with Carnage. I played Carnage in my first Masters of Evil deck, and I absolutely love him, so I love seeing somebody play him. Dave has gone back and done a new iteration of his Deadpool deck. So Deadpool has a card from the Marvel set that says, play on target character as an attack. If successful, opponent must discard a number of cards equal to the number of hits on the character. It's a only character that has that card is Deadpool. Makes it a little bit interesting to play around because no one really uses it.
So we've got no teamworks here in the first round. Also, discard place teamworks, but that doesn't have an effect in the first round.
And, and if you
Lawrence, so
notice,
how many teamworks did you play in your deck here, Lawrence?
I ran 2.
both strength.
No, 1 strength and 1 any power.
Okay. Dave is also running Might over Mind. So, what are your thoughts going into this as far as your events? Well, then Dave has he's playing against 2 anti-teamworks, and he does have a fighting teamwork. So, you did get a little bit of a hit on that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Well, I just knew that between our 2 event sets, we were going to have anywhere from 5 to 6 anti-teamwork events coming through, so that the likelihood of getting a teamwork throughout the match was going to be small.
So you've got your Symbiotic Awareness on Carnage. That's such a great card, especially against Dave's deck. It avoids a hit with an attack with a combat icon on any character on your team, and then you get to draw a card, reveal it, and keep dupes. One of the premier cards. How did you feel about that card? As one of the only people myself that have used Carnage and not really having that card anywhere else in the set, what are your thoughts having played it now?
I can tell you that in this match, since I duped the morph, not only is it a great avoid for anything with a fighting icon, and it gives you sort of a card back to use, but I was sometimes using Morph's Power Mimic to copy it first to let myself perhaps draw 2 cards during the hand.
Oh, that's
running off guard.
nice. That's very cool.
That's really powerful. I mean, some defensive card advantage is basically the best thing you can do in this.
I love seeing a power mimic as a 1 per deck. I can tell you from using my 1 per deck, I use the Hydra, I think it's infiltrating agents, that allows you to look at the dead pile. That's one of the things that I notice players the most just don't ever calculate. I know just from playing against it so much with Sean, I'm always aware of what he can copy out of my dead pile, but I just find the amount of times I can copy something like the symbiotic awareness if my opponent plays like an avoid and draw or a 3 draw 2 or even just a big 1 per deck. The amount that comes into play is really powerful. So yeah, how did you feel playing it for your 1 per deck?
It was my first time playing Age of Apocalypse as the battle site. Originally, this was an Any Heroes deck, and I just didn't have the defense to keep heroes alive. So I went with Age of Apocalypse for the defense, and I like the flexibility of Power Mimic being able to either Power Mimic like a JW or Power Mimic Symbiotic Awareness were the two things I was trying to do the most.
All right. So it looks
have-
like you both placed out here, and then you immediately ran.
Yeah, Dave
So
had more card than I did, so I just kind of wanted to like cut my losses.
okay. Are you running multiples of the White Tiger, the 6 discard 2, or are you just doing one of them?
Just one.
So if you duped on your morph and you're only doing one of those, you're definitely in a position where you pretty much know you're not going to dupe on anything here. And you do know Dave really likes to stack his deck with cards that won't dupe. Now, Laurence, you have an interesting strategy here. You're placing 2 universe cards to the Reavers. Did that work out for you?
Do I realize that later I might realize it later.
For the audience, I'm just teasing. We all make that mistake from time to time.
Yeah, with the cards that look different happens.
Yeah.
Just in the modern game, all the cards will look the same, so I don't think that'll be a problem. But for Magic, it does happen.
Yeah, we definitely designed the new one to have a much more uniform look, so it's a lot easier to spot the dupes. Some of the older players weren't as big of a fan of the new teamwork layout, but I think that's just one of those you don't like, you're used to one of them, because the old teamwork cards, there's no way, if someone doesn't explain to you how it works, they don't actually have any information on them.
They don't make sense.
They don't make any sense. They do once someone explains, and you're like, oh, all right, I guess that's what it does. But we definitely changed how those look. So what are your thoughts here? So Dave looks like he bets low at maybe 1 or 2. Are you looking to fight here, Laurence? Or are you thinking you wanna run? Or are you gonna try to bet high to see if he runs?
This was the first tournament that I played Dave. So the night before his first time I'd ever played Dave, and at one point he was up like 7 cards on me, and it kind of blindsided me. So I'm very consciously in this match trying to not let him get a gigantic placing advantage again. That is like my primary thought.
I think honestly, as you've only been playing what, 2 years?
Yes.
Yeah, I think as a relatively new player, so to speak, that's the exact thing you want to be focused on against a player like Dave. Dave's biggest improvements in his game has become placement management. So you guys are starting to poke here. So you're in hand 2. You're down 1. Dave's up 1. You bet 2. Dave bet 1, but is surprisingly fighting a little bit. So Dave looks like he's trying to get rid of what was he targeting? The White Tiger?
Probably.
Yep. And you decide to negate it again. I think that's great. Especially if Dave just wants you to use a placed card so he can keep that advantage. You know that, but at least you're using a card that you know is going to duplicate.
And now I'm going to throw my illegal ally.
Well, nothing's real. As long as you're using the cards this battle, the only difference would be the teamwork would be in your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so Dave immediately chooses to Bamf.
This is Maximum Carnage card, which allows 2 follow-ups at a +1 or 1 follow-up at a +2. It had been pretty much an auto-negate the entire tournament. No one wanted that to happen. I don't remember what Dave does here. I guess we'll see.
Well, so that's a good question. So Dave generally has been playing a lot of decks that don't have a negate. So this deck he's playing the Inhuman, so he can avoid it, but it doesn't stop the rest of the string. So did you find the Maximum Carnage to be more successful here?
And I think what Dave's asking right now is if I have to declare how many follow-ups I am making, and the ruling is that I only have to declare after that hits when I make the next attack if I'm doing one or two attacks.
Okay.
Um, but yes,
And
I am more comfortable knowing that he can't negate that card with any ease, except end the
I
battle.
and I can confirm that that was the ruling given because that was my hand that you just saw on screen for a second, making that ruling. Yeah, so the ruling is you don't have to declare the number of attacks until the first attack is resolved. That's not how most people do it. Most people just say they just play it. No one asks, and they do some number. They'll say, but technically, it's the initial attack resolves, and then so Dave's doing here what we expected. So Dave made you exhaust a couple of place cards, but I think you were very disciplined, Lawrence. I think you were good at not using too many placed cards.
Yeah, and I know it just hurt to drop that, to still have that 8 and the Hades in hand, and know that Dave was not going to let me play either.
So Dave has not been able to do, though, what his primary goal here is, which is set you up with a bunch of little cuts to try to make the knock 'em silly, which he has in his hand, a devastating discard 2 or 3. So I'll ask you this, Lawrence. Most people have had a similar experience. The first time you play against this deck, Dave will play uh, attacks like 2 combat or 2 fighting icons that are things he already has on your record that don't seem like you would want to spend a card to block it, so he can build up the number of hits and make that knock 'em silly really good. Do you feel like that was something that you noticed or fell for at all?
I think because I play with Jonathan Lewis so often, I'm so leery of letting an ally hit because playing
Yep.
against John Lewis, that's the spell of destruction.
Yep.
So I'm kind of always leery of letting any ally hit because it's in there for a nefarious reason.
Yeah, and you have kind of PTSD against underestimating those low hits.
Absolutely. Which is part of the reason why I am running this ally heavy deck, is because I thought I would get a couple people with some allies that seem insignificant.
Yeah, I can remember playing against Jonathan Lewis with those allies also. Every once in a while, like you'll get them all at the same time with the same colors, and you can just choose to take them, but usually they're a problem. In this case, things are getting really heated with the amount of place cards. I mean, Dave's obviously doing what he does, but you're doing a good job of staying with him here, Lauren.
Yeah, that's I'll give you credit. This is still absolutely anybody's game. You've maintained a pretty equal placing advantage. You've kept the defense you need. Dave's running multiple of those 9s. We see the 9 energy on Nightcrawler, the 9 intellect on Inhumans. But you've also got your rescue operation, and it looks like I believe that's a negate on the Reavers.
It is.
Dave has 11 cards.
So you go 2. I like you're pressuring him. He goes 1.
So do you. I
And
always
then
find it fascinating, like the order in which people choose to play when there's just so many cards and so many ones. It really is almost.
And this is again where I think I'll make the mistake a lot of time and just be like, okay, we're gonna fight, and I'll not be disciplined about throwing from my hand first. And I really think that's the difference between in this at least this aspect of the game. One of the most of the people like yourself, Phil or Dave, some of the people that have really gotten good at that. That's something I want to improve in my game is the discipline of not being like, well, I'll just throw a teamwork and 2 placed power cards and then they run away. I'm like, oh, well, all right, I got 2 venture, but now I'm so far behind.
Yeah, so I'll try to play cards that aren't going to dupe, like you mentioned from hand, but also just like I'll play power cards if possible, like on characters that aren't being attacked, just generally cards that are going to dupe in the future. Try to
And
minimize.
this is
duping them.
also, yeah, to add on to that, Keffer, that's also Dave's strategy. Dave will run away from he'll bet one and run with a one per deck in hand if he can set his board up to have all cards that he's not going to dupe on. If you have like a negate, a 9 or less avoid, things he knows you have 3 of. And a lot of times he'll play into, going down 2 or 3 missions and waiting for you to have 1 or 2 of those dupes. Like, for example, Laurence, you've had a rescue operation play since first hand, and you haven't used it yet. Most likely, you're going to start to dupe on it. But this particular hand, it looks like you each have a power card dupe, and that's going to be it.
Yeah, I often make that mistake. I never really know when to use that 9 or less and when not to. Because, like you said, you want the warm blanket feeling of it sitting there, but you also know there's more coming. So it's always a tightrope.
Well, and
Yeah,
this is a particularly tough situation for it because normally I'll use it a lot more liberally, but in this case where there's a 9 energy placed to Nightcrawler and a 9 placed to the Inhumans, I think it's almost worth eating the duplicate to just guarantee his 2 off-color 9s don't hit.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I'm looking at Bushwhack, which is the 4 plus the 7, which I might need the negate for, off of Deadpool.
It is true, but remember, you do have the symbiotic awareness, so he can't really afford to combine those because that would be a 3 for 1. He would avoid your 2 cards with it and then draw a card.
yeah, that'd be fantastic. Maybe even with more.
Symbiotic awareness is giving me definitely some comfort seeing that teamwork, the 2 fighting power cards, the multi. Um,
All right,
and
so
I still have that morph placed.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that card's functioning kind of like a Stars and Garters in the game, where it's just like it's sitting there and kind of giving you this perpetual card advantage, which is very, very powerful.
So it looks like there's a little table talk here happening back and forth. So you're deciding what to venture here. What are your thoughts here? Do you remember what you're thinking or your strategy is going into this 4th hand here?
I remember my deck is against a sort of non-Dave opponent is meant to be aggressive. So I just know that I have to keep trying to get him to play, and that I will eventually dupe and run out of attacks, basically, if he keeps making me discard my whole hand by conceding.
One fun thing about doing this commentary is we do have an audience, so people kind of pop in and out as we're recording. We did get a little bit of the Strangler Phil Miller in for a second, asking if this was Friday or Saturday's games. I was surprised he didn't hang out because he does. I think he's in the 3rd match that we have coming up. But so how much? It looks like you went 2 there. I like that bet. I don't think you want to give Dave any cards. I think you want to just keep doing what you're doing here and try to lean on him and just keep getting that incremental venture. So you
that's
open.
before make an additional energy attack right there.
I think it's just make an additional 4 energy, make an additional attack.
Correct.
Make any. Yeah. Okay.
And my guess is that I'm going to follow it with the pin. Is my guess.
Pin is very good here. It's going to get a premier piece of Dave's defense because all of his guys are so stacked.
Yeah, those cards are particularly good against this strategy.
Okay, so yeah, I love it. So you're trying to pin them. You're going to get that ally. You're going to get a 5 multi-power and one of the 9s.
Does this actually land?
I don't remember. I do know that Dave is talking a lot right now.
Dave does like to talk out loud, which he says works for him. I've advised him a lot to. Dave has definitely said things in competitive matches that have changed what my actions were because he's giving me information about what is in his hand or even what he's thinking. But he said he needs to kind of talk it out loud. So this is a great example. This is a card that I think probably Dave is the only one that's ever played it in competitive play. 7 fighting to use, acts as a level 2 fighting. Now, what Dave's hoping you do here is say, well, he's got so much fighting. It's only a 2. It's not offsuit. I've got to let this hit. And he's hoping now to start getting the enough little hits on there that the knock 'em silly is going to be a discard, 2, 3, 4 every time it hits.
And that Nightcrawler is the last thing I want to see off of an ally, because now he's doing right back to me what my deck is designed to do, which is a string that doesn't end.
Yep. So he's going to play the 3, and Nightcrawler has so many options here. He's going to take advantage of the full amount of the string. I think, but then he just made a... maybe this is Dave just not wanting to use those placed cards like we talked about. He's got every single placing slot full except for Spider-Woman. And maybe he's just decided with the pin, he's just going to try to do his damage and make you use placed cards. All right, so you're throwing I believe it's called Skullbuster, the 7.
That's
Bonebreaker, that's what it is. Dave's going to use his full avoid off his battle site. I've got to be honest, if I'm in your position, I love seeing a full avoid.
Yes, definitely.
Wow, so okay. I'll be honest, I have no idea how this match ends, but you only have 1 in the bottom. Dave disgustedly tosses your pin back to the other side of the table. All right, so Dave does have 1 hit set up. Dave's definitely got a little bit of a placing advantage now, and this is the game he likes to play. Now he's going to see if he can create that pressure and claw it back. This at this point should be an only strength teamwork cards may be played. Dave's got a duplicate storm. You do finally dupe out on both of those rescue operations. So that's a bummer, but I don't disagree with your play here. Honestly, I think I would have kept it placed 2 with 2 9s placed.
I'm waiting for this to happen to Dave also, because we know he plays those too.
Yeah, he just hasn't drawn a single rescue operation yet. And that's the interesting thing. That's what makes OverPower so great, is this variance of what am I seeing come up? How am I strategically placing cards to make sure I have them later? Is that, I wish I would have noticed when they got placed. Laurence, can you remember, is that a negate or is that Donald Pierce, or is that the lockout on Reavers?
It's a negate.
Negate, okay.
Yeah, you've been saving that. Been very careful with that so far, I believe. Which, rightfully so. That some of the cards in Dave's deck are very different.
All right, so you get an 8. Very, very strong on Heroes for Hire. We haven't seen a lot of JWs flying around either, so I think we should expect to see one of those coming through. Probably this hand. I can't make out the hand.
I don't see one, but yeah, they should be coming soon. You play 2, Laurence, or you play 3?
I run 3.
Do you remember if you went did you go for the win here?
I don't think I did, which is probably a mistake.
So yeah, it looks like you're both just going 1. And you do have the strength teamwork, which is, when you're on the other side of the table against one of those events, man, that stinks to see. You don't want to see that. And you have the follow-up from hand, which is great. So that's a 5 energy. It'll become a 6 to block.
Yeah, it's really rough when only one player has speed. I mean, that was the idea of generally of the strength decks, trying to slow things down, because if they can get all their big hits off, their hits are just going to be bigger than the other opponent. In this case, it's just even more unfair since you get to throw teamworks also.
Although the any power teamwork is pinned as well, so this is my only teamwork of the hand.
Yeah.
So is that the case? I always forget. Dave's better at this. So you can throw it through the Reavers through the strength stat. I know in the new rules that would be allowed, but I don't know if that in the old rules.
I got a prejudging from Doug, and it was not allowed at this event.
Okay. That's probably what the rule is then. It probably has to be a full strength In the new rules, the any powers are a wild card. Whatever you make them act as, they just completely become that. But Dave really likes this X World battle site. It's definitely a great battle site, but he likes this because he can choose any point during the string of a teamwork to play that defense. So he plays Storm, he wards off Inhumans, so no universe card attacks, or no attacks with universe cards, which is different, can be played against the Inhumans. So that's going to help a little bit with the speed and the allies, and he's going to try to do it back to you. So he's got the pin from Heroes for Hire, Medusa. He's going to try to tie up that Heroes for Hire.
I really like the X-World battle site as well, and I think it's a perfect fit for Dave's deck because I tend to not play it because I end up needing or wanting to play like 19 activators. But
Mhm.
Dave plays like 75 cards or something, so for him, you can get away with a lot of activators and spread it out. I'm just not willing to do that.
Yeah, well, I think that, a lot of the decks that you're playing, Phil, are a little. Dave's generally doing like not big one per deck effects. He's trying to get repeatable mechanics like the Knock'em Sillies or with Nightcrawler. He's trying to throw multiple of the trick transports. He wants to make you use the negates on non-numerical things and then get his numerical specials through, where decks like your one that you won Peace Bridge with a couple of years ago that's running a really high percentage of early draw threes, you don't want any more than the minimum cards. That's a very traditional style of design. Get to my biggest cards as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, that's general, my opinion. Though I do agree that if you are like, there is, I, I could see playing like 60 cards or something slightly more in the right situation. I don't think I've gone above 57 in a really long time, if ever. But I do think that like you dupe a lot less of the three ofs if you're in the low 60s. So
All right, so that's a good card. That is a good card. That is a 2 multi from the Reavers that can only be defended by a special. Now that means Dave cannot actually use an activator even to defend it. So that's gonna create a lot of pressure on the Inhumans.
yeah, there's some
Dave.
really tricky rules that you wouldn't have thought when the cards were printed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those in general. Dave, I believe, is actually running the 3 version off Deadpool. Those attacks have. There's very few characters that have them, but they've gotten to be way more powerful than they used to be. So he's throwing this just for 1. So it's a 1 discard.
It's a good one.
And I used my negate for the pin, so he's pretty sure I can't do too much about it.
But you can discard 1 from your hand if you want as well.
See, I think he should be able to power mimic that angel of voids on the.
Well, I think that's technically been he expended it. It's in the defeated characters pile.
Yeah, I'm sure he can. Though that's like, again, like his Reaver's negate is on top of there. You can see that too, which again,
Yeah,
I think is technically not on the table by the
that's
definition.
well. That's why also those old cards were worded so incorrectly. We have a character we're playtesting for the Top Cow set, from the Hunter Killer series. That's his whole ability is to mimic powers, and he's most likely we're pushing that 1 per deck through, and it's completely reworded. So it's obvious it's a card placed or in play.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that hard to make that wording because I can remember people thinking, "Oh, I can just bring whatever I want with, just sit it beside the game."
Now let me ask you, at this
Yeah.
point, Laurence, was there any consideration to power mimic the 2 since the first 2 got through and try to kill Inhumans?
I can tell you that that did not occur to me at the time, but staring at this now, I really wish that I had tried that.
Yeah, that would have been great.
But the 4 is a kill shot. I mean, he's clearly not going to get through. He's got the 5 place. He's only going to lose 1 venture. But Dave, as always, is going to want to try to play a card from hand. Now, I'm surprised. This seems like the spot where Dave might have done only universe, which is essentially a full lockout. I feel like with a JW deck, he's sort of playing with fire, thinking that Beast Activator is going to be there, but he also probably wants to hold on to a negate.
Dave and his small attack.
And this is actually kind of an interesting thing to talk about game design and rules design. So there's the old game was very light on any timing rules. So take for example, Dave has an activator in hand. He cannot get the negate out to block the 2. The 2 can't be defended by a special. Now, Laurence, if you were to play that power mimic, there's no timing rules to explain. When I play the power mimic, if I try to copy the 2, can Dave negate the power mimic before it becomes the 2? I think the current ruling would be no. There's not really, it like instantly becomes that, but it's not laid out in the rules. You'd have to try to find like a meta code to see if this problem came up before. And that's a big part of what we've done with the rules is we haven't really tried to change rules. We've tried to make the timing. So in the new rules where you have the astral plane, the thing in the center of the area in the center of the board, any card that copies or transforms or acts as or becomes another card has to do that as it exits the space in the middle of the board. So you would play the power mimic. Dave would have a chance to negate it before it became the 2. And I think that that's the kind of stuff people are really going to come to like about the new set is that it really clarifies all of these timing issues and there's not going to be a lot of ambiguity.
Now that's gonna create a situation where a JW could be negated as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So it would be also just because negating is its own thing. It's being called out as negating is not considered a defense. Negating is basically a counter spell, for lack of a better term. It's its own thing that happens in the astral plane. So yeah, JWs will be negatable. The flip side to that is we value negates a lot better. So any characters in the new game that have a negate, you'll notice in the new format are going to be priced closer to what the Reavers are, like a 21 if they have a 7 or something in
Mhm.
that realm.
Yeah, they've always been so cheap that I do think that's pigeonholed us into the the game format that we have just because if they were more expensive and you had to pay Reavers prices for them, not every deck would have a negate. But since they're always like 17 points, like why would you not play one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're getting your negate and you're paying for a more expensive character, so.
Right.
So
Exactly.
Dave runs away here and puts Lawrence in a spot where he's just got to go one for the win. He's got to,
Yeah,
again, he's maintaining a little bit of a placing advantage, but now he's at a point where he's got, I mean, our timer is not always accurate, but he's probably got about 15 minutes to try to make this up, and he's only managed to push through one hit so far.
Yeah, Dave should have a decent size, but
so I think at this moment Dave's up 3 cards. I think he's up 2 placed cards and 1 in hand.
yeah, I mean, are you thinking? I guess you weren't able to place, which doesn't help.
Now he's up about 5. I think he's got every placing slot filled.
So what are you thinking here, Lawrence? Like, what is your game? And obviously, it's going well for you so far, but as everyone knows, getting that one.
Yeah, I know that I am now concerned that I like used a lot of my placed cards last hand, and knowing that Dave's coming into this with a huge card advantage, and that I just have to try and whittle him down a little bit before getting out.
Yeah, that's. I think newer players miss that strategy a lot, where you're like, okay, I know I can't win this hand right from the start, but my goal in this hand is to reduce my placing disadvantage. Yeah, that's exactly what I think you should. Dave's gonna make it as hard as possible.
Well, and also keep in mind too, like, you never want to be really playing the clock. You certainly don't want to ever waste time. But the clock is a consideration where Dave has been controlling the tempo of conceding to try to get this placing advantage. He's put himself to where he has, I think, at least 4 in the bottom, and you have 6 in the top. So you're also willing, I'd be willing to just fight and trade some hits back and forth and just, even if you fight these hands and chew up 2 or 3 more battles, Dave doesn't really have the resources. He can only bet from the reserve pile right now. So he's got to win at least 2 battles before he can make any significant bets.
Well, I know I was happy off of that teamwork to throw the 1 multi and the 2 energy at the Inhumans because he has to block both. So, and they were from hand. So I knew at least I'd be getting a couple cards.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible value for you. Having both of those be kill shots has to defend.
And it's finally happened. He finally follows up the ally with the 9 and eats up that rescue operation.
But again, that's probably the last one, right? So that's gone forever.
Yeah, that's the last one.
So what are your thoughts with your power mimic now? Do you have something on the table you're wishing to target? Are you thinking at all about maybe the bushwhack or something later, or
Because I'm running a mono 8 deck, I was oftentimes saving that morph unless I knew it was a kill shot to be defensive. Just because I really did not want to lose heroes pretty much at any cost. And in this situation, staring down so many attacks, I'm probably keeping it to mimic symbiotic awareness.
all right? So it's a lot of back and forth. And this is what Dave's hoping to do is throw those non-numerical specials that are really awkward to block. But you have the negate in hand, so that's really good. That's Dave doesn't want to see that. He's kind of probably hoping to get that pin through, but this is definitely looks like Dave's got to fight this battle out. So the one good thing here is you can make him have to commit significant resources to keeping Inhumans alive and having to win this venture to not lose the game.
I'd feel more comfortable power mimicking an attack if his negate was gone from his site, which I don't think he's used yet.
No, he used the only universe last time, so he could still have a beast, but I do like your idea here, though. In a game point situation, the copying the symbiotic awareness, which has been there since hand 1, is a really, really great play. Now, curious, why did you not go for the kill shot there on the Inhumans?
Well, great question.
Were you worried that he was going to block it with an 8 and you just didn't want to risk it being blocked?
Could he have trained that up to a 9 though? I don't remember the Inhumans grid.
Oh, I bet that's what it is. They have a 5 strength, so
Yeah,
probably.
So he could have trained that up.
Yep. See, that's great. I would have forgot that and fell for it. So great play.
And I'm just trying to get the points because if I win this hand, I win. So I'm just trying to. All I care about is the numbers right now.
Absolutely. For those so what we're talking about is Dave's home base, which his right hand is covering a little bit, is the Spartan Training Ground. You can choose 3 training cards, and you can use 1 per battle, offense or defense. Dave likes to run some of these any powers, like the 5 any power, so he can train it up in different power types as long as the character's grid type is 5 or less and allows them to use a training card.
So that was a huge mistake that I just did. I like saw the intellect icon and I should have power mimicked because that's my last morph.
Oh, so you use the morph avoid the intellect.
Yeah.
Just out of habit. Like, oh, there's a champ.
Exactly.
It is so hard to get to use that.
But you're doing what you want here. You are eating into his placing advantage at least a little bit.
Oh, come on.
Oh, he has the Inhuman.
Yeah.
And the tough part there is that avoids it, so your Heroes for Hire are still pinned, and the Nightcrawler 4 lands a kill shot. So Look, you're still in a great position. Time's running out. Dave's still got such a big hole to build out from under. But that does hurt losing your heroes for hire.
Yeah, losing your only 8 stat, that's going to hurt if this game goes long. Yeah, with the clock, you're probably not going to power at least long.
So Dave's only got one card in hand, and I like that play. I like getting aggressive back. You're not really worried about anything Dave does here. He can't throw the bushwhack, which would be your biggest fear, is if he paints up a character with 2 colors, but you've got your symbiotic awareness. Dave is only representing the 4 energy played alone as something that gets around the symbiotic awareness. And it makes sense that he's going to do this play. This is what I would do is make it so you have to pass. So he hits with the 4. You don't have a defense. So it's an 11 versus a 17. And he's showing that he has more than that placed, but now you have to pass. So whatever you draw with the symbiotic awareness, you can't attack with it. So it's a very, very clever, detailed play from Dave.
Yep, smart time.
So that's Dave's 6 Any Power Teamwork card. And if I'm you, Laurence, I think I'm letting this hit and running, and that's exactly what you've done. So you did great there. You know, like you used up a good amount. He's still got a placing advantage, but you've both lost your 8. Dave's really not putting himself in a position here where he's going to be able to make up that huge venture win in the amount of hands that he has last. And if variance helps you out, if you get one lucky draw and he has to lose one more mission, then that's probably the ball game. So Dave goes with no teamworks maybe played. He luckily dupes his discard all teamworks, no teamworks in the same hand so that he doesn't have to get rid of his teamwork. He's got 2 Inhumans dupes and an event dupe. So Dave is only drawing 5 cards. Unfortunately, Laurence, you have 3 dupes as well. So that's going to put you at 6 cards to Dave's 8 cards.
Yeah, I have to say, getting the knockout blow on the last.
Yeah, that was huge. You got rid of a royal family and an 8 multi because you were able to punch back and kill that other 8 character. So, all right. So Dave throws a 4 multi down to place. He's got the 6 intellect that gets rid of a tactic card. That's tough to see. So Dave places his Knock 'em Silly, and he's done exactly what he wants at this point. The Knock 'em Silly is a discard 3 if it hits Carnage. He's gotten a bunch of little hits on him, and he's set him up perfectly to get Knock Silly.
Yeah, that's an awfully nasty card when you get through.
Mm-hmm. Are you playing your Avoid off your Shadowcat?
I am not. The Shadowcat is the 6 and the Soul Sword in this build.
Dave can't be sure of that, though. So one good thing about really diverse battle site characters is you don't know. Some people play it. So Dave makes a bet. I can't see what it is. I believe it's 2.
Yeah, I think it's 2 as well.
Yeah, Doug for sure plays the Avoid under. I believe Doug plays the Avoid. Played against.
Age of Apocalypse is interesting. So these battle sites list 6 characters. You can use any specials for those characters underneath. Those hero cards that are in your deck can activate their specials. You can't repeat any specials. You can only have one per deck. But Age of Apocalypse lists Blink as one of the characters, and she does not exist yet. She was going to be part of the second Masters of Evil set, but it never got created. So you do have to build that using the specials for only 5 characters. All right, so Dave controls the play. He's going to go first. Laurence, are you deciding whether you're going to concede or not? Is that what's going on here?
I'm sure that's what I'm doing. I have two allies. Neither are playable. I can't see what I have in my hand, but I know that I'm just kind of in rough shape for this battle. I think I'm holding Carnage as three, so I could play one ally, but Dave has initiative, and my defense is obviously pretty minimal.
Yeah, almost non-existent here.
I'm curious how aware of the time you are here, Mark. Kind of guessing not aware, but probably guessing running pretty low.
So Dave plays that Goblin Queen card, and this is a weird rules interaction with these battle sites. Like, this is like great responsibility. So it lets you get something out of your deck, but you're supposed to exchange it, meaning the special itself is supposed to go into your deck. I always thought you should have to put a dead card in there if you wanted to play those off the site, but it's been ruled that you just discard them after. You don't have to do the second part. I think mostly just because people didn't like having to put a dead card in their deck.
Yeah, though with great power it gets tricky. I always thought you should be able to play it with Beyonder after it comes off your deck, but then I understood why the rule against that. Like, yeah, those cards not going in your deck is certainly just a rule that was chosen to be made for practical purposes and not certainly not the way the cards are.
All right,
Phil,
so
I
you are
think you're. I'm not as. I think I'm not as aware of time and how long this battle's gone on as I could have, because I really could just eke out these sort of like one ventures because Dave's so down. Um,
I mean, it's
but
pretty
it's
perfect for you
daunting. It's daunting
to play
staring
this.
down that card advantage.
So
Sorry, Phil. What's that?
it's good for you to play this. I mean, because if you play this through the time limit, then there is obviously you want to keep as much of your placing while doing it. But if you trade place cards for place cards, good.
So Dave is actually going to go for the kill there, which is
Ooh,
surprising to me. I thought he would try to do the knock him silly. Um, Now, I hope you're not forgetting about the carnage inherent here, because Dave is actually only up by. Are you just going to concede? So then it didn't matter. So Dave's going to start to move some up. So Dave has now dug himself out of the hole, and now you are in a position where Dave can make the bet he needs to make if last hand is called, and definitely force you to play it out. So yeah, unfortunately, Dave's done exactly what he wants to do here, which is he got himself right to the brink of defeat and gave himself enough of a card advantage that you're going to have a really hard time overcoming it, even if he gives you extra cards on a big bet, which Dave likes these decks. He likes to live on the edge sometimes with this, where he builds up, builds up, builds up, and then just creates a insurmountable placing advantage.
yeah. I mean, that's got to be a dead ally card at this point too now. So
It's a dead ally card, and it's deceptive because I was one away from the win, and it's like three or four hands later, it's sort of shocking to be in this position.
Mm.
yeah, I
So
mean, this
Dave,
is I found this to happen a lot against any hero decks that would win 6 of missions or something. Like if you can win that first round against any hero deck, even if they get the perfect event, they still just can never get that last mission.
so you do have something interesting here. So you have the lockout in your hand, and you have the only universe cards from
Oh
the
my
Dark
god.
Beast off the site. So are you thinking here about trying to bet for the win and lock both characters out?
I can tell you no, but I love the idea.
Yeah, that's I thought you were toast, and then yeah, that gives you that's for
Now, you
that
guys are
playing
really
scene was
you're
massive.
counting a lot of missions, so I'm assuming at this point, yeah, you're doing the math. So this must be last hand. So last hand's been called. So you guys have to try to kind of figure out the math. So I believe you are 5-1-1, which means you're basically have 4 points. Dave is 2-5-0. So Dave's currently at 2 to your 4. I think you're exactly right. I think at this point, since it is it, you just bet one and force Dave to give you cards. Now, the other thing, too, is even if Spider-Woman were to die here, if you can generate the amount of venture to and then lock Reavers out, there's still a lockout strategy here, even if she dies. She's not doing anything. You know you don't have any more teammate avoids with her. So I think if you can let her die with only a few, 10 to 11 venture and then overcome it after you lock out, that could be a strategy to win here.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if Soul Sword is his last play against Spider-Woman. Ooh, I would not be attacking someone other than Spider-Woman.
That was a huge mistake. Risk, I should say.
All right, so he attacks with the 4. Now, this is where I think you just let her die. You're in a great position. He's generated 12 venture. He's only going to be up 10. And whatever he throws next, you can just pretty boy. That basically kills any of his offensive-only cards. All 3 of those play specials are useless once you play the lockout.
Well, that card won't kill her. That will put her at 20 or 12.
Oh, I thought that was sorry, I thought that was a multi, but that's a teamwork under there. So, yep.
But what I should be doing here is using acrobatics.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because you basically gave him 4 venture for free there. Oh, you negated it.
Yeah, I was so focused on the knock 'em silly that it didn't occur to me to use acrobatics in that way.
Yeah, well, that's tough. That's a tough play. No spoilers. I'm on the edge of my seat here to see how this goes, but Dave's got a lot of venture on the table, and all right, so a 5 energy coming in from the Reavers.
I know. I'm so curious to see how this.
Yeah, because it's definitely still anybody's game. Is it helpful though for Laurence when you watch games like this to sort of see paths you could have taken differently?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Dave does have it. So that's another interesting thing. Dave did have the teammate avoid. So throwing, if you threw all of your cards at Spider-Woman, you could have made that a dead card.
And I know I'm feeling like that I need a little bit of luck here, and that if I could somehow get Nightcrawler down, I could at least get rid of that 9.
So
But
Dave's smart. He's an experienced player. He's just he's generating as much venture as he can on Spider-Woman, just in case you had the card that you ended up having.
Yeah, he would know that he hadn't seen it yet.
Ugh, so the 9's going to get through. He's going to max out the venture there.
Wow, that's gotta be. I don't know how you come back now, Lauren. Maybe.
well, the one thing that I do know is I am still thinking I have Soul Sword, so if I can somehow get it through, that would offset the 9 at any rate. But that's kind of crushing card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it also means that the 9 or less was going to get played.
Yeah.
So Dave attacks with a placed card off the battle site.
Yeah.
Or to the battle site. I'm not really sure why he wouldn't just pass, but he must have some reason he doesn't want to pass.
I think he's thinking about my Soul Sword, is what I think he's thinking.
He might not be able to pass with the card in his hand.
Oh, and he wants to keep it to defend the Soul Sword. I see.
Yeah, he wants to be able to block Soul Sword on Daredevil or Deadpool, for example. So now you're going to get Soul Sword.
But it's not going to be enough.
Can't be enough.
Laurence, sorry, that was kind of a brutal loss there at the end. Dave I didn't think he had a chance in that game, but he pulled it out at the end.
Wow, marathon match.
It was a marathon rematch to a marathon game the night before.
Well, I will say this, Lawrence, the best thing about a game like this is when you look at it, and I think there was absolutely an alternative path to victory with the lockouts or with different things that you could copy. And so, the best way to look at it is if you're going to lose a game like this, especially one where you controlled it the whole time, seeing all of these different things that you're going to think about when you play the next game is almost worth it. This is a random round of Swiss in round 2 of the event, and it taught you multiple lessons to pay attention to for play later.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to watching this game again, because it took such a surprising turn in the middle, and I know that I knew that there were paths that I would be able to see on hindsight.
Mm. Well, Lawrence, I've played some grueling long games against you as well. It's always a pleasure playing you, and I definitely think you are one of the newer Overpower players that we're going to see at a top 8 table probably this coming season. So we're looking forward to it. Thanks very much for jumping on and being with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Lawrence.
Phil, always great to have you. Thanks very much, guys. That's round 2, and we are going to move on. If I remember right, we have a great game round 3. So jump on over. We have Sean Ballantyne versus Phil Miller. Both players had a rocky start to their day, and I believe they went into round 3 0-2 each. So we decided to throw they're both some of the best players to ever play the game. And we wanted to throw them in there because an 0-3 start a lot of times is tournament elimination. So it's really hard to lose your first 3 rounds and still make it to the top 8. So we're going to get to see 2 of the best players in the game trying to keep their tournament day alive in the next round. All right. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you in round 3.